was, at least from Mr. Martin's perspective, there was just the normal, everyday occurrence. So I don't have an issue in bringing out all of the text messages, you know, because you can't handpick them and say, this is what it represents. What the totality is what is the accurate picture for the jury to understand. So I don't have any issue at all if I'm going to permit the state, and I'm going to permit the state to be able to use any of these text messages with Ms. Martin. But I don't have any kind of issue in terms of all of the text messages during that period of time to give a clear picture.
Okay, Your Honor, and we did
So
have our
modify the exhibit as the court has indicated. And if you wish, and if you have access to that information, if you wish to use that in any kind of cross-examination of Ms. Martin, you certainly can.
Yeah, Your Honor, I don't have that. I didn't know that they were going to introduce these till this morning 5 minutes ago, so I don't have that. But what we are asking, Your Honor, we listed the person who actually pulled the other text messages from Jeremy Martin to the other individuals. We have that person listed on our witness list, and we can present that person in our case in chief.
So do you have a witness that can, Mr. D'Antonio, do you have a witness that can go forward before Ms. Martin? In order to, because this is again being handed in at the last minute, I'm going to give the defense an opportunity to see what other text messages were occurring during that same period of time. And so I'm not going to keep the jury waiting because we need to make some progress this morning, and it's already 10:50.
And I understand Your Honor's ruling. I do think that there are other things we'll need to discuss before we can put Ms. Martin on the stand.
All right, so do we have another witness to go forward with?
Yes, Your Honor.
Who
I'll
will
let
that be?
Mr. Meyer have that portion.
Your Honor, that witness would be Major Gabriel Gonzales with the San Diego County Sheriff's Department.
All right, and are there any exhibits related to the witness?
There are no exhibits that the state intends to introduce in its direct examination of Major Gonzales.
And if I remember that testimony previously, I don't think that was really lengthy. Who would we know would have these shifts to right before the now? Certainly.
The next witness, Your Honor, would be Officer Connie Bird, Las Cruces Police Department. There are exhibits here which would be coming in through Officer Bird.
Do they relate to the building and the floor plan?
They relate to the photographs of the lobby area.
I think we can go there without it compromising the visit.
No objection, Your Honor. And, Your Honor, it's, my understanding is that, I apologize, I'm not familiar with the court schedule this morning, but I understand that her testimony is not anticipated to be exceptionally lengthy.
Well, even if we do direct examination, that would be sufficient just to get us, so that we're not wasting the time. Otherwise, I'll just send the jury to their recess. But let's make a little progress this morning. So again, this is Mr. D'Antonio. I don't have all of the information that I originally requested, Mr. Clark. And forgive me for looking to you, but you did the opening statement as well. I'm going to look to each of you before we begin anything. I'm going to recognize you for the prosecution, Mr. Clark, you for the defense. And if you want another member of each of your teams to proceed, then you inform the court of that at that time. So there's no confusion and people not rushing up to the microphone. And let me caution both teams. When you're there at the table, if you need to engage in discussions, back away a little bit from the microphones. Make sure that the behavior at the table isn't this, it's not a criticism, but isn't attention-getting or distracting. Because I notice at each of the tables, there's movements that are occurring while the other person here before the jury, but, you know, and I understand that there has to be a little bit of communication. It just doesn't have to be so overt that I see the jurors turning their eyes rather from the attorney that is asking the questions or making the statements to see what's going on at the tables. So please, your conduct as discreet as possible, please.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. So let's go ahead. Who is going to do the direct examination on Mr. Gonzales?
I will, Your Honor.
Thank you. And the cross-examination?
On Officer Gonzales?
Yes.
Ms. Garcia.
Thank you. All right, bring the jury back. Please. Do we have Mr. Garcia available to, or what is the title for?
Major, Gabriel Gonzales, Your Honor.
Bring him forward, please. Yes, please. Kelly, thank you for being such a gentleman, and I'll ask you to be of assistance wherever is necessary. Go ahead and take your seat, please. Thank you. We'll now proceed with testimony or presentation of evidence. We'll hear from, beginning this morning with Major Gonzales. Major Gonzales, good morning. Let me ask you to please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth under penalty of law?
Yes, sir, I do.
Thank you. Please take your seat, make yourself comfortable, and you can adjust the microphone to whatever time you like. Please begin this morning by giving us your full and complete name, the spelling of your last name for the record, and with whom you are currently affiliated.
Yes, sir. My name is Gabriel Gonzales. Spelling of last name is Gonzales. I'm a major with the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office and have been with them for over 18 years.
Thank you. Mr. Byers, we can commence with your direct examination of Major Gonzales.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, Major.
Good morning, sir.
For a little background information, when did you begin your law enforcement career?
In public safety, probably in 97, but with the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office since 99.
And did you basically work your way up through the ranks?
Yes, sir.
And can you describe for the jury some of the typical training that you have received?
Yes, sir. I have received several types of training beginning of my career. Essentially, like every cadet, we start off at the New Mexico Law Enforcement Academy where we get our certification. We go through different blocks of training. At the time when I attended, I believe it was 20 weeks or 22 weeks.
And what did that training consist of?
Multiple trainings. You had, pursuit driving. You had a legal block. You had a defensive tactics block. You had, dealing with the mentally ill. Numerous trainings through the 20-week period.
Did that training also include the proper use of firearms?
Yes, sir.
Well, over return to that subject of training later on, but to give a little bit more background concerning your role and function, are you certified to be an instructor in particular areas?
At one point in my career, I was a certified instructor. Now that I've taken the role of administrative duties within the Sheriff's Office, I am no longer an instructor for obvious reasons. We want our staff to grow, and we replace our staff command with other instructors within the department.
Can you describe the general organizational structure of the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office?
Sure. Essentially, currently we're at 94 sworn personnel. We have a sheriff, we have an undersheriff, we have the major, who I am now, and we have a captain, and we have lieutenants through the rank, we have sergeants, corporals, and we have deputies, deputy threes, I apologize, deputy twos, deputy ones, cadets, and we also have criminal investigators within our office.
And as far as that structural organization is concerned, individuals are assigned to specific units, is that correct?
Oh, it depends. When there's an actual opening, an individual has to display certain levels of proficiency, to include no disciplinary actions, and we essentially put out a memorandum of those who are interested in a certain division. So if there's an opening or a vacancy within our criminal investigations division, we do set up a list or a test and an interview panel, and the candidates are chosen at that time in the rank that they tested out.
And did you have occasion to be a member of any of those? First of all, let me back up and rephrase the question.
Mr. Byers, could I ask you, forgive me for interrupting, your voice is a little bit lower. Is the microphone, are you in front of the microphone? Or should-
I am, Your Honor. I'll bring it forward.
There, that's better. Move the microphone just a little closer to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So, Major Gonzales, are there any specialized teams that are organized within the departmental structure of the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Department?
Yes, sir. There are a couple. We have a narcotics team that's assigned to a regional unit. We have the Warrants Fugitives Division. We have a Court Services Division. We have a Community Support Service Division that's tasked with training and recruiting. We have a Criminal Investigations Division. We have a Fatal Team Division. Yeah, that's about it, sir.
Now, you mentioned Fatal Team. What does the Fatal Team do?
Our Fatal Team is an extra duty. We have staff. There's approximately 6 members of that team. Their responsibility is to be on on-call status to respond to any motor vehicle accidents that may arise with great bodily harm and or death. They're tasked with investigating those crashes.
And this is ordinarily associated with motor vehicle crashes?
Yes, sir.
What are some of the qualifications of a person who would be a member of the Fatal Team?
Again, the individuals have to be off of probation status. Members that want interest, they need to get letters of recommendation for some of these divisions from their commander. And again, there is a test, and the individuals that rank out of that testing from top to bottom is how we select those individuals. Once they're selected, we send them to advanced training so they become proficient in their responsibilities for the investigations.
Typically speaking, what would be some of the generic types of advanced training that someone on the Fatal Team would be assigned to go to?
They have Fatal Team, it's accident reconstruction training. I personally have never done it, but I know we do send our staff to those sort of trainings and courses that are available.
And do you know former Deputy Jeremy Martin?
Yes, sir, I do.
And can you tell the jury what you know about Deputy Martin's duty assignment?
Deputy Martin was assigned a swing shift team patrol. His responsibilities were essentially patrol the county, investigate cases at the patrol level. As one of his extra duties, he was a new member of the fatal team, or the traffic team. And that was an extra duty that he did in conjunction with his patrol team.
To the best of your knowledge and recollection, was Deputy Martin at all times permanent? Was he qualified to be a member of the fatal team?
Deputy Martin was actually going through the training last I recall.
And do you have any knowledge or information about any deficiencies in his performance while he was going through the training with the fatal team?
None that I know of, sir.
Now, do you have a special weapons and tactics department?
Yes, sir.
Can you describe the purpose of that organization?
The tactical response team is responsible for responding to high-risk situations, hostage barricaded situations, active shooter scenarios, and or other high-risk situation deemed necessary for their activation at the discretion of the sheriff or his designee.
Can you describe for the jury some of the training and selection criteria that is applied to someone who is going to be a member of that team?
Yes, sir. So again, a list is made out. We put a memorandum out for those individuals who are interested in being part of the team. A list is created, and those individuals have to undergo physical fitness standards, and some of those standards require them doing a mile and a half in a certain time, push-ups, sit-ups, bench press, leg press, a 300-meter run, and also doing an obstacle course with full SWAT gear. Once those individuals, if they've made it that far through that selection, a list is made, recommendations are given to the sheriff after review if their human resources viable, and at that time the selection is made. Once you're selected to be on the team, you have to undergo trainings. One of the mandatory trainings that we do is within a year of them being on the team, they remain on probation for approximately 6 months, but within that year, we want to send those members to a basic tactical course, one that is at least recognized by the National Tactical Officers Association.
And do you know a person named Ty Roy Chan?
Yes, I do.
You see him seated at the podium?
Yes, sir.
Can you point him out and describe what he's wearing, please?
Mr. Chan is wearing a gray suit, seated next to Mr. Clark, and on the other side of him is Ms. Garcia, I believe, wearing glasses, a white shirt.
Thank you. Your Honor, may the record reflect the witness has identified the defendant?
The record will reflect that Major Gonzales has identified Mr. Chan here in the court.
Thank you. Now, are you familiar with the members of the tactical response team for the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Department?
Yes.
Was Mr. Chan one of those members?
Yes, he was.
Do you know about the type of training that was in place at the time that Deputy Chan was a member of the tactical response team?
From what I recall, his training, he had attended a basic SWAT course that we sent him to. He also attended monthly trainings that the tactical response team had. It was usually a full day of trainings, and if it was not a training day where they were doing entries or on the range, they were tasked with doing physical assessment standards. They had to do their standards at least twice a year.
And were the physical assessment standards of the tactical response team greater than those of the regular patrol deputies?
Yes, the guys are very, they hold that position for each of them with some honor, and they hold themselves to a higher standard. So they're always pushing themselves. I've gone out to their trainings and seen a couple of them when they do their physical fitness, and they're always pushing each other to do more.
So would it be fair to say that higher standards is a keystone of the tactical response team?
Yes,
in all areas?
yes.
Would that include physical fitness and firearms training as well?
Yes, if they don't maintain their proficiency in their physical fitness standards or on the range, firearms range, there will be recommendations to remove them from the response team.
And concerning the fatal team, are there any specialized physical fitness requirements for the fatal team?
No.
What are the specialized weapons training and proficiency requirements for the fatal team?
They have to, like I said earlier, they have to get certified in traffic reconstruction.
So there are no special weapons requirements over and above the basic norm for the fatal team?
No, sir.
How would you describe the weapons use training that a basic sheriff's deputy receives at the academy?
Currently, it's I believe a 1 or 2 week course where law enforcement deputies or cadets or police officers are familiarized with their weapon system, how to work a malfunction, and how to, essentially, they have to be qualified to carry their firearm. They have to score over an 80% at the minimum level.
Now, when you say the firearm, what is the standard issue firearm that is issued by the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Department?
It's a Glock 31 357 SIG.
Is there any particular reason why that particular firearm and why that particular caliber have been selected for use by the Sheriff's Department?
Not that I'm aware of any, sir.
And to the best of your knowledge, is that Glock 31 and 357 SIG caliber, is that also the standard issue weapon for the tactical response team?
Yes, it is for every deputy within the sheriff's office.
For every deputy, no deviations?
Yes, sir. Unless they get approval from the sheriff to carry a different firearm.
Now, you've told the jury that you're familiar with Deputy Martin. You've told the jury that you're familiar with Deputy Chan. Can you describe for the jury what your warrants and extradition section, the responsibilities of that department, of that division?
The Warrants and Fugitives Division is responsible for fugitive apprehension, responsible for processing warrants and court orders that are given to the sheriff's office. So essentially, if there's a warrant for an individual that's filed in the courts, their responsibility is to execute that and bring the subject into custody. Now, they're also tasked with setting up extraditions out of state. The responsibility is essentially, if you get a warrant confirmation out of NCIC that individual's been picked up in a different state, the Warrants Division works with the courts and the district attorney to process that extradition to bring the fugitive back to New Mexico to be heard for his or her charges.
And how is it that assignments are ordinarily made for the extradition process for the deputies to be assigned to carry out the extradition orders?
When we select individuals to go on an extradition, we have a running list for out-of-state flights. On this, let me go back, I apologize. So even though there's a list, we have to take into consideration staffing. So if somebody's working on Monday, Tuesday, and we have to have that subject back to New Mexico on Tuesday, then we'll have to move on and select another person to go on that transport or that extradition.
Now, are you familiar with the extradition or transport of an individual named William Chapman?
Yes, I am, sir.
Can you describe for the jury what that consisted of?
This transport or extradition was extradition where the district attorney had essentially requested that Mr. Chapman be brought to New Mexico for a hearing. It was our responsibility not only to bring him to New Mexico, to Santa Fe in particular, but we also had the responsibility to return him. So that extradition was not like a normal one because the individual was in a federal facility. We had to make arrangements to pick him up, transport him to Santa Fe, and upon the conclusion of his hearings, then get him transported back to Stanford, Arizona.
And in order to do that, how many people do you ordinarily send on an expedition transport?
It all depends. We've had facilities where we've picked up, there's 2 prisoners that need to be brought back. Depending on their background, we'll make that decision if I need to send 4 or 3 individuals. On this particular one, there were 3 individuals had been selected, had signed the waivers to do the transport.
Now, you mentioned the waivers. Why is that significant?
Well, the waiver, and when you're working with the federal facility, they want to know who's coming. They don't want no surprises. So we work with them, and we have we select the 3 individuals. We ask them on their days off if they want to do the transport. They sign the waivers, and we get approval. We send it down to the facility, and those are the individuals that need to do it, no matter if it's their days off or our staffing will have to make arrangements.
Was there anything in particular that happened with regard to the transport of William Chapman that caused Deputy Chan and Deputy Martin to be the 2 deputies that are assigned for the transport?
Yes, with this transport, upon the return of the individual to Arizona, I have been contacted the Friday before the transport was going to happen. There was SWAT training that day, and Mr. Chan had contacted me early in the morning, said that the other deputy that was supposed to go became ill. So we were kind of in a bind, and we had to work it out. I told Mr. Chan to go to the training and that I would call the facility and see what arrangements I could make. So it's one of those situations where they allowed us, as long as one of the original deputies returning, they allowed us to bring somebody else into that transport. So with that happening, that day, that Friday, Jeremy Martin was working. He was doing fatal team training in our briefing room. I had found him in the building, and I asked him if he wanted some overtime, if he wanted to go on the transport.
And how would you describe Deputy Martin's propensity to be assigned or volunteer for overtime assignments?
He was always volunteering for overtime, and this particular incident was no different. He asked me who he was going with. I explained to him with Mr. Chan, and he said, okay. He said he would do the transport.
And do you know whether or not there had been any contact or communication between Deputy Chan and Deputy Martin prior to the transport?
Not personally.
When there is a transport, is there a standard procedure that is followed?
The individuals with any transport, and when you place an individual in your back seat, you have to follow procedures. The individual needs to be searched. Even though they're coming out of a facility, you don't know if they're hiding anything or they got something in the jail. So you still search them, you still handcuff them, you put, in a long transport like that, you put shackles or belly chains and you place them in the right rear seat.
And what is the purpose of all of that?
Officer safety.
Is there a reporting requirement that those officers who are responsible for the transport must report back to you or your designee concerning the progress of that transport?
On a return, they process the paperwork and they return that paperwork to the district attorney. If they're bringing a prisoner to Santa Fe and they're booking them into the facility, obviously they do pull a case number and they do a booking sheet.
And in this particular case, well, before I go there, Can you describe for the jury what the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Department policy is concerning trips and any deviation from the approved route and any reasons for the authorization or deviation? I'm sorry, it's a compound question. I'll just ask you, first of all, can you describe the policy concerning deviation from approved routes?
There should be no deviation. It should be transport straight to the facility, and if you're approved to stay overnight, you stay there in that town, and then you return. You got to take in consideration how tired people are when they get on the road, how long the transport may be. So there's a lot of different factors there.
So in the situation where Deputy Chan and Deputy Martin were going to Safford, Arizona to retrieve Mr. Chapman, do you know off the top of your head how long it would have taken them to get from Santa Fe to Safford?
I want to say approximately, right. You know, we take in consider lunch, pulling over for restroom breaks. You know, I want to say they had at least an 8-hour plus drive.
Would it have been reasonable for the transport team in this set of circumstances to have stayed in Safford, Arizona?
Yes.
Did anyone request permission, as far as you know or recall, to not stay in Safford, Arizona?
No, sir.
When was the first time that you learned that there had been a deviation from that normal policy?
When I received a phone call at approximately 2:30 in the morning,
What was the nature of that phone call?
I was advised that Jeremy Martin had been shot and Tai Chan was in custody for his death.
Now, going back to the transport, do you know which of the deputies had been authorized or had been set to be reimbursed by the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Department for the costs of that, their meals and lodging on that transport?
That would have been the transporting deputies, Mr. Chan and Mr. Martin.
Now, as far as the policies and procedures for securing firearms, does the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Department have a policy for what is considered proper securing of a firearm wherever the deputy may be?
Now, our policy states in your unit and or in your residence.
Do you know which unit was taken on this transport trip?
The unit that was taken was assigned to Mr. Chan. Because he was in the Warrants Fugitives Division, there was a cage in that vehicle.
And were there other weapons beside the duty sidearm that were also associated with that unit?
Yes. Every deputy is assigned and qualifies with shotgun, their handgun, and an AR-15 rifle.
Now, we touched on training before, and I said that we'd come back to that. Are you familiar with the use of force model?
Yes, sir.
And is that something that is taught as in basic police academy?
Yes, sir.
It's been a while since you were in the basic police academy, but to your recollections, have there been any significant changes to that use of force model?
Not that I'm aware of.
Since we have used that term a few times, can you describe for the jury in general terms? Well, first let me ask, are you certified as an instructor in the use of force model?
I am not an instructor in the use of force model.
To the best of your knowledge of that concept, can you describe for the members of the jury what that is?
The reactive control model essentially guides law enforcement officers on proper and applicable, reasonable uses of force. What I was taught is that you have a civilian and you have a police officer, and you have each block dictates where the individual is. You have a cooperative subject, the officer should just be alert. you have a non-cooperative subject, and so forth, all the way to from an unarmed subject to an armed subject. And it's places where officers, the reaction is to that level of that individual.
Are there other basic, what are some of the other basic tenets of firearm use that are taught to patrol deputies?
Our agency sends staff all to advanced training. So, we do send individuals to, if they're interested in a certain training in firearms, if they want to become a firearms instructor, we try and help those individuals grow to fill those vacancies.
So, for example, is there, the Sheriff's Department has standard operating procedures, right?
Yes, sir.
Most law enforcement agencies have.
Yes, sir.
Is it part of the standard operating procedure for a sheriff's deputy to align himself with the principles and tenets of the reactive control model?
Yes.
Would it be a matter for subject for discipline if the deputy did not abide by the guidelines of the reactive control model?
Correct.
Why is that considered, well, before I go there, are you aware of any bases for any lawsuits that have been lodged against law enforcement agencies?
Sustained.
Why is it important for deputies to abide by the tenets of the reactive control model?
Because every day where law enforcement officers are judged, you have to make the decision on reasonableness when you're applying any use of force. The Sheriff's Office, in our policy, our objective is to apply a reasonable minimal amount of force to a deputy's lawful purpose.
And the central heart of that is reasonable amount of force in the circumstances. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So, is it in accordance with the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Department or the reactive control model for the use of deadly force to a person who is fleeing the law enforcement officer?
No.
I'm sorry.
I maybe I'm misunderstanding your.
Go ahead. Please approach. parties for the question.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you.
Thank you.
Major Gonzales, I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I'd like you to respond from your perspective, not drawing it out.
Okay.
And so my question to you concerns, from your view as a certified peace officer, what is the purpose of the use of deadly force?
The purpose,
Yes, sir?
again, the objective of any use of force and deadly force is, one, is stop the action, incapacitate the subject, and not to kill unless no other choice presents itself.
Now, would it be fair to say that what you have just described could constitute a checklist?
Yes.
When you encounter situations where the use of force or the use of deadly force must be contemplated by you, what are some of the things that feed into your analysis of the circumstances to help guide your decision-making on the appropriate level of the use of force?
Objection.
I'm gonna,
And the objection is, under the rules of evidence, what are you objecting to?
It's the rules governing expert lay testimony and relevance to this witness.
Overruled. Go ahead and respond.
could you repeat, sir?
Yes. From your perspective as a certified peace officer, what is some of the information that you consider whenever you're going through this checklist on how to apply the reactive control model and to make the proper decision about the use of deadly force?
That's a bad situation to be in. And, one of the processes that you have to consider is, are you going to go home at the end of the day? But some of the things that you need to consider when applying any type of force is, can you get cover? Can you create distance? Can you request assistance, or can you retreat? Those are some of the things that me personally, that I'm going to process. How am I going to survive this incident? How am I going to stop this attack? And if I have no other choice, then at that point, and if it happens quickly, you have to stop the action. And that may be discharging your firearm.
Now, you've used the term stop the action. What would be one of the components of the word action? Would threat be a component?
I would say an armed subject. An armed subject who's you're faced with would meet that criteria.
An armed subject that you're facing would meet that criteria?
Yes.
When would the threat from an armed subject cease?
It would cease when you make an attempt, when you stop their action, when you discharge your firearm.
Is it possible for the threat from an armed subject to cease without the deputy engaged in that situation discharging their firearm, for example, by the creation of distance?
Yes.
Would armed suspect who would be moving away from you, would that person be decreasing the threat?
That's an opportunity to get control of the situation and create that distance, retreat, get cover, get protection, and reassess the situation.
Now, is there anywhere in the Santa Fe, well, let me rephrase the question this way. Where in the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Department Standard Operating and Procedures Manual does it say that deputies are authorized to discharge a firearm at a person who is fleeing?
Doesn't in our policy.
I'm sorry?
Doesn't in our policy.
That's not in your policy.
To discharge a weapon at somebody fleeing? No.
Can I have a moment, John?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Fox.
Major Gonzales, how would you describe you mentioned cover, distance, if you can obtain assistance, or retreat as some of the options. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I noted that none of those are immediately calling for direct engagement of the other subject. Is there a particular reason, based on your understanding and training, as to why those options that I've just described, that you first described to me, are put in that analysis checklist?
As I was trained, that's part of the reactive control module.
Now, if a sheriff's deputy in the line of duty discharges his firearm, what are some of the immediate steps that are the requirements of your department that deputy must do?
They must notify the on-duty supervisor immediately and report the incident to nurse or the law other agency within the jurisdiction.
What else must the deputy do? Particularly as it pertains to the subject that the deputy just engaged.
Well, they'll have to document the incident, obviously, do a memorandum as to the incidents as why, and at that time, the sheriff or his designee may request a review of the incident.
What about performing first aid? Is that a requirement?
Any law enforcement officer, any good Samaritan should render first aid.
Okay, but again, the question was.
Yes.
That's within the training module.
Yes, it is.
It is?
Sorry, Your Honor.
Thank you, Doctor. And after the rendering of first aid and notifying other people, what obligations does the deputy who has just discharged his or her firearm have to other people in the immediate area where that firearm was discharged?
Obviously, those are witnesses possibly. You secure the scene, you make sure that, you have the commanders there, you have an outside agency, you make yourself available. Again, you document the incident to the best of your knowledge, and you help aid those if somebody's injured.
Now, as far as the decision to shoot or not shoot, that concept gets a lot of attention in law enforcement training, doesn't it?
Yes.
What are some of the considerations that the peace officer must keep in mind when the decision to shoot or not shoot is before them?
You got to consider, what's between them and the target, what's beyond the target. What if it went through the target? What's beyond that individual? Ton of things that you got to consider. I mean, law enforcement officers are judged on shootings every day.
Would the decision to discharge a firearm be impacted by whether or not you were in an open field or if you were in a more enclosed space, like, for example, inside a building.
The scenarios would be different, yes. There's things to consider. I mean, is a wall made out of brick? Is it made out of drywall? Could a fragment of that bullet go through it in an open space? What's beyond it? Is there a house? Is there a school? You have to take into different factors.
Would you say it's an accurate statement that the general duty of the sheriff's deputy is to protect the public?
I'm sorry.
Would you say that it is an accurate statement that the general duty of the sheriff's deputy is to protect the public?
Yes.
And that would also include being accountable for rounds discharged?
Yes.
Now, you mentioned before that the duty weapon of the sheriff's department is a Glock 31 .357 caliber.
Yes.
Fairly fast round, right?
I'm not a ballistics expert, sir, but
Let me rephrase the question this way. Would it be part of your assessment of the circumstances immediately prior to discharging the firearm if you were in a situation where that round might travel and engage sheetrock or other construction materials as to where that round would end up?
yes, you're responsible for every round that you discharge.
Now, as far as weapons retention is concerned, are you certified as an instructor in defensive tactics and or weapons retention?
No, I'm not.
So it would be impossible for you to definitively describe that or display it?
Yeah, I'm not an expert in it.
Okay, just a moment, John.
Go ahead.
Absolutely, sir.
Thank you. Ms. Garcia, cross-examination of Major Gonzales.
Good morning, Major.
Good morning, ma'am.
Major, isn't it true that this reactive control model that you were trained on, it's described as a reactive control model because it's the person acting in defense is reacting to the acts of the assailant, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And in this model that you're trained on, the assailant actually gives behavioral clues, and then the model describes what the person attacked is supposed to react in response to those clues.
Yes, ma'am.
And isn't it true that on this continuum of the model, the officers, including Mr. Chan, are trained on how to confront an armed assailant?
Yes, ma'am.
And the response in the reactive control model for when dealing with an armed assailant is survival, is it not?
That is correct.
So it's true that when employing this reactive control model, the most important factor is the survival of the officer.
That's correct.
And in fact, as part of that model, under survival, it instructs that the use of deadly force is authorized to stop the action.
Yes, ma'am. Stop the attack.
Right. Even if that includes the use of deadly force.
Includes the use of deadly force.
Okay. Can you testify a little bit about the Special Weapons and Tactics Unit, or that's also referred to as SWAT, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And Mr. Chan, he was actually chosen to be a part of your SWAT team, right?
That is correct.
And that's because he met the proficiency standards, right?
Yes, he did.
And he also had no disciplinary issues at all.
No, ma'am.
And in order to be a part of that group, he of of course, also had to be a certified law enforcement officer.
That is correct. And a commissioned deputy.
I'm sorry.
And commissioned.
Thank you, yes, and commissioned. So that means he went through the training academy, right?
Yes, he did.
And as part of the training academy, Mr. Chan would have had to have gone through the 20 or so weeks that you testified about, the different blocks.
That is correct.
And those include being trained in defensive tactics, right?
That is correct.
And that also includes training in self-defense, right?
Yes,
It includes firearms training,
also firearms training.
and Mr. Chan successfully completed the academy, right?
Yes, he graduated the Law Enforcement Academy.
Now, Mr. Martin, he also went through this 20-week block at the academy, did he not?
Yes, he did.
The same one that Mr. Chan went through? A different class, perhaps?
Different class, maybe different time of year. Correct.
But Mr. Martin received the same type of training at the academy, right?
That is correct.
So just because he was part of the fatal training, he was still held to the standard of proficiency and of completing training in defensive tactics.
Yes,
And he was also, Jeremy Martin also completed proficiency in firearms training, right?
yes, ma'am.
And those are things that law enforcement officers have to actually have annual certifications on, isn't that true?
That's the only way they could graduate the Law Enforcement Academy, by successfully passing each block.
And at the academy, law enforcement officers are also trained on the proper response in all sorts of threats under this reactive control model, right?
Yes,
And they're trained on what actions to take in a variety of different threats, right?
yes, that is correct.
So what to do in a non-violent situation versus what to do when you're actually being physically attacked.
That is correct.
And if someone actually points a firearm at a police officer, the appropriate response on that is to actually have the firearm drawn, to assess, to cover, and all this happens very quickly, right?
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
Do you teach your officers, Major, that they should do whatever they have to do to protect themselves?
Objection, Your Honor. Calls for speculation based on the witness's prior testimony.
I'm going to overrule the objection based on your experience.
Based on my experiences, me personally, I want to get home at the end of my shift. And unfortunately, there are circumstances in law enforcement that do put an officer with that challenge. And if it means stopping the attack by discharging my firearm, I would.
So if you were in that situation where you had been confronted with an attack, and you would also discharge a firearm in that situation?
Yes, depending on the circumstances and the environment.
And all the officers employed in your office, they have a department issued sidearm, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And that's the Glock that you spoke of earlier?
I'm misunderstanding you. I apologize.
I'm sorry, all the officers are issued a Glock
Correct.
sidearm.
Yes.
They're not issued two weapons, right?
No, but if they choose to carry a backup weapon, they would need approval from the sheriff. The weapon would have to be inspected by a certified armor, and the individual would have to qualify with that weapon. And that weapon and the individual that carries that weapon, during this qualification, all the serial numbers and test scores would be documented.
We talked a little bit regarding deviations on stays overnight on a transport. Do you remember that?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, the policy from a deviation on a stay, those policies are strictly enforced now, are they not?
Yes.
At the time in question, they weren't as strictly enforced as they are now, in fact.
They were implemented.
They were still policies, but...
They're still a policy.
You would agree with me that now they are more strictly enforced compared to then?
Yes.
One of the things, I'm going to go back a little bit to the training at the academy. One of the things in defensive tactics that you are taught is how to disarm an individual who's holding a weapon. Isn't that true?
Yes. Yes.
And you're taught how to disarm that person by using a blocking maneuver, right?
Yes.
Can you demonstrate for the jury how you were trained at the academy and how Mr. Chan and Mr. Martin would have been trained in this procedure?
Let me ask the attorneys to approach. Those kind of demonstrations have to be approved by the court.
based on your training, what that blocking maneuver was you spoke of to disarm the subject?
The block move that you spoke of, or me?
Right.
Okay.
That we're referring to.
Okay. Now, all due respect to the courts, I wasn't trained disarming somebody from my seat. Are we talking verbally, or are you asking me to demonstrate?
Yes, you're being asked to
Verbally.
describe the training that you receive in terms of this disarming maneuver.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor, for clarification. Essentially, at the academy, I was trained that it's a simultaneous move. It's a step, a grab, lock wrist with both hands, twist the gun, push it down, and strip it down in an opposite movement, putting pressure on the thumb with the lip of the weapon. That creates a weakness in the hand, and you're able to strip it away.
You're able to strip the firearm away in that manner?
Yes.
Corporal, based on, or Major, my apologies, based on your training and your knowledge of the use of force model, officers are trained or not to continue to fire on a threat until the action has stopped.
Policy states that you'll stop the subject or the action, can incapacitate the individual, but the intent's not to kill unless no other choice presents itself.
So I just want to be clear, so it would include to fire on a threat until the action is stopped.
Correct.
Go ahead.
I'll pass the disarming.
Thank you, Ms. Garcia. Mr. Byers, redirect examination of Major Gonzales.
Thank you.
Major Gonzales, Ms. Garcia asked you questions concerning and asked you to verbally describe how you would disarm a person if they, or correction, how you had been trained to disarm a person if that person were pointing a deadly weapon at you, a firearm in particular, type of deadly weapon at you, right?
In close distance if the weapon was to my head.
Okay. I'm
Yes.
going to phrase the answer that way. In close distance, if the weapon is to your head, there are a number of different angles at which a deadly weapon can be pointed at someone, correct?
Yeah.
And the response would be different if the deadly weapon were not pointed at your head, but let's say at your midsection.
Yes. Yes.
And how would that vary from a situation where a deadly weapon was pointed at you, but the person holding that deadly weapon was standing behind you? Would that be the same technique?
No.
If you were on the ground and the person holding the deadly weapon was above you, the technique you described would not be applied, would not be applicable, would it?
No, sir.
So, were you in the room with Jeremy Martin and Ty Chan?
No, I was not.
Can you tell this jury about anything that happened inside that room?
No, I cannot.
Are you able to tell this jury whether or not Jeremy Martin ever touched Ty Chan's pistol?
No, I cannot.
What is the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Department's policy concerning the use of firearms while under the influence of alcohol?
You don't use...
Your Honor, outside the scope.
Go ahead. Respond to the question.
What is the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Department's policy on the use of firearms when under the influence of alcohol?
Can't use the firearms while you're under the influence of alcohol.
Now,
And Major, don't let your voice drop too much.
Okay.
thank you. Concerning firearm retention, Is there is it true that it's one of the basic tenets that you never let somebody get close enough to you to grab your weapon?
Correct.
And that if your weapon is drawn, isn't there some barrier distance that you are taught to maintain so that your weapon does not get taken from you?
Objection, lead.
Overruled, okay. Go ahead and respond to the question.
Yes, sir. Police officers are trained to keep their weapon the opposite side of the subject that you're dealing with and or are talking to. So if I'm talking to an individual in front of me, I'm right-handed. I'm going to turn my body this way to keep my weapon furthest away from the individual as possible.
And if you are in a situation where you had to draw your weapon, and let's say you believe the person may be armed with a knife or something else like that, but you have a reason to have drawn your weapon, are you concerned at that point that the person may grab the weapon from you?
Yes.
Are there procedures and techniques that you have been trained to ensure that does not happen?
Yes.
And is that ingrained in you in police academy?
Yes.
Is there a normal distance that is associated with that?
It's a weapon retention move. For me, it's if you're within my reaching distance where you could grab my hands. Hands are what kill.
Would it be fair to say that that's in the range of approximately 6 feet?
Right around there.
As a peace officer, if a person is running away from you, and you had a firearm in your hand, would you perceive that person as a threat?
Objection.
Please approach that.
To the best of your knowledge, do you know whether or not the defendant ever reported the discharge of his firearm to your agency?
No.
No further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Vargas. Ms. Garcia, is there any re-cross-examination?
Just a couple questions.
Go ahead, proceed.
Major Gonzales, I wanted to make sure what you said in your training is that hands are what kill, right? You just said that on the stand?
Yes, I did.
In fact, to clarify, you said within 6 feet, hands can kill.
If somebody's closing distance, if they have a weapon, yes, they can.
Thank you. No further questions.
Does the jury have any questions of Major Gonzales? Major Gonzales, thank you very much for your testimony. May, Mr. Byers, may Major Gonzales be excused?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Garcia, do you have any objection to that?
No.
Be excused. Thank you. Your responsibilities for these proceedings have now come to an end. Either you can remain in the courtroom or you can go on your other business. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Since it's right at a few minutes after 12 o'clock, we are going to go into our noon recess. I'm going to ask you to please be back this afternoon at 1:30, and then you'll receive some additional instructions from the court, and we will proceed to what is referred to as a visit to the site that is being described in the testimony. So please accompany Mr. Narciso or Mr. Narciso. All right, we'll see you back at 1:30. Thank you.
far as witnesses are concerned, what time would the court feel comfortable having them come back?
3:30.
3:30. I'll inform them. And just for the record, the arrangements have been made with Ms. Ron, one of the attorneys from the Tallahassee. They are expecting the jury at 1:45.
Just have a discussion with our bailiff in terms of how the jury will be let out to the vehicles, who's going to be in the vehicles. We'll have some of that discussion at one point.
Your Honor, one other thing, we didn't think we all forgot to do this earlier, would you like to vote the rule?
Certainly we'll all recognize it, and I don't think any witness has been in here this morning. They'll be given that admonition for the 3:30.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.